Right. Good morning, everybody. A very warm welcome to this morning's webinar. I hope you're doing well, whichever part of Scotland you are in. I know some of you have come from all over Scotland to join us this morning, so you're very welcome today. I'm in Kinrossshire. It's a nice, quite bright, but cold sort of morning, and I hope it is quite good where you are. My name's Brian. I'm the development manager with Hourglass Scotland. Just a background, Hourglass Scotland is an organisation that used to be known as Action on Elder Abuse. And our remit is very much about trying to keep older people safe. And we have a remit from helping people right from sort of prevention of abuse to kind of supporting people that have been abused right through to recovery of abuse. So that's what our organisation is actually for. And we're here today giving a sort of series of webinars on various sort of subjects that are kind of relevant to keeping older people safe. So as I say, you're all very welcome. You'll be glad to know it won't be me talking all the time. I'm just kind of filling in while we get more people joining us as we go through the morning. So this morning's webinar should last approximately 1 hour. It may finish a little bit earlier, but we'll try not to overrun. If anyone's got any questions, please feel free to submit them in the chat box. Our presenter may not get a chance to answer them as they're talking, but if they're able to, then they may well do. But please don't worry if it sounds like we're just carrying on, because what will happen is I'll make a note of them in the background and I will put them to our presenter at the end. So please don't worry about that. So you're very welcome to ask questions as we go along. So that's really enough from me. Just very quickly while I think of it, there is actually another webinar on Thursday, which you might be interested in signing up for. And that's all about the role of carers in keeping older people safe. So if you go back to our website, you should be able to see an opportunity to sign up for that if that's of interest. So that's probably the last plug for me at the moment. So as I say, a very warm welcome to you all. Hope you're doing well where you are. I'll now hand over. I'm very delighted to welcome David Russell Douglas from the RBS, and he'll do an introduction of his role, etc. But very warm welcome. I'm going to disappear into the background because you don't really want to see me, and I'll hand over to David, who will then do a presentation. So I hope you enjoy the next hour. Thank you.
Thank you. So hi, my name is David. I'm one of the community bankers for the Royal Bank of Scotland. Today I'm here to talk about fraud and scams and let you know a bit about what types of things we're sort of seeing at the moment, and also how to kind of keep yourself safe and secure. As I said, my role is a community banker, so what I do is I look after our more vulnerable customers, dealing with sort of more complex situations, but also help keeping them safe and secure. So fraud and scams is a big part of my role, and as I said, that's what I'm here to talk to you about today. So if you do have any questions, please just add them in the comments box, as Brian said, but also just make sure you don't put any of your own personal details in there as well. That's one thing I just want to make clear at the start, is don't go putting bank account details. You'd be amazed at the types of things we sort of get in our comment box, so just keep those things to yourself. So I'll be looking forward to seeing your questions later on. So let's get started. So did you know you're more likely to be a victim of fraud than any other type of crime in the UK? In fact, in 2019, there was 1.2 billion was lost to fraud and scams. There was actually a 9% increase in crime in 2019, and that was just solely driven by fraud. And actually, when we look at that, only 5% of sort of fraud and scams are actually reported, which means about 95% of the time, these criminals, they're not even being chased. So this is only a small portion of what we're actually seeing out there. So what we want to do by things like these presentations today is raise awareness of it, break down a bit of the stigma, because there is a bit of a stigma around fraud and scams. People feel, they don't want to report it, they don't want to talk to their friends and family, but actually we really need you to be talking to people about this so that, you can actually sort of help raise awareness. And if you can talk to people about it, people are then aware of what's going on and are more or less likely to fall victim. And it is important to say that anyone can be a victim to fraud. It's not just tied to one demographic. Literally anybody can fall victim, and we're actually seeing a rise in our younger generation at the moment. Certainly with people going to sort of universities, maybe struggling for cash, or certainly because of the COVID-19, a lot of people have lost their jobs, and they're looking for different ways to raise money. So we've actually seen a 26% rise in money mule activity. And I'll go into that in a bit more detail because it's probably a term you've maybe never heard of before, but I'll let you know what money muling is sort of later on. But effectively, it's just the way the money gets transferred from your pockets effectively into the hands of the criminals, but I'll go into that in detail later. So overall, fraud is a big problem with sort of massive numbers attached. But often it's just the small things, often like the misconceptions and lack of understanding, and that leave most of us sort of ill-equipped to deal with the threats when we actually do face them. But there is some good news. So here at the Royal Bank of Scotland, we stop around £500 million worth of fraud each year. And as I say, the purpose of today's sort of session is to really sort of raise awareness of what types of things are going on, so that again, together we can kind of stop even more fraud from happening, which is the most important thing. So whilst there are literally thousands of sort of types of scams out there, and actually, you might actually be aware of a lot of them. So Brian and I were just talking before this session about romance scams. Romance scams is probably one of the biggest types of scams we actually see, where somebody befriends you, maybe builds up a relationship, whether that's on some form of social media or over the phone or via letter, whatever it is, some form of contact. They build that relationship over a period of time, and then at some point there's a request for money, and that's how these sort of things work. And by that time, you're kind of fully bought into this person, so you think you trust this person and you're willing to give them the money. That's probably one of the biggest types of scams we actually see in the bank, is romance scams. There's loads of other types like phishing scams, which is things like emails you might get into your email box. So again, it's requesting information. The same thing can happen via text. Again, you might get a rogue text, and I'll go into these in a bit more detail later on, but there's loads of different types of scams out there. And today I just want to give you an idea, a wee flavour of how that fraud and how the fraud and scam cycle works, so that it's easier for you to sort of spot it, and then you can actually break it, stop it from happening any further. So let's start with the basics. What do the fraudsters want? Well, most people will tell you it's your money. But actually, yes, they do ultimately want money, because that's what they're in the game for. They want money, but they actually can make a lot of money from other pieces of information. So things like your PIN numbers, maybe passwords from accounts, even parts of things like your identity, so maybe pictures, maybe just snippets of information like your address, something that identifies who you are. All that information is really valuable, and any kind of form of data they can get from you is really valuable. There's actually a global marketplace for this type of data on the dark web, which is a portion of the internet that criminals operate within. It's a part of the internet that I'd imagine that majority of people on this call today will either never have heard of or will never ever venture into. It's just basically the underbelly of the internet. But that's where these fraudsters and criminals swap information, they sell information back and forward, and so as I say, any piece of information they can get from you is really valuable. So with that being said, there's a good chance that some of your data is already held on a database, so it's only a matter of time before someone actually targets you. So how do they actually get this data? What is it they're actually doing? Well, there's different ways that criminals will actually get your data. The first one is just through plain and simple. They'll try and either hack a computer or a database, or there'll be something called a data breach. Now, data breaches happen to large companies, and this is where their information is stolen by a criminal. So big high profile cases that we've seen in the last sort of 24 to 48 months is things like British Airways have had a big data breach, Marriott Hotels, LinkedIn, which is a social media platform, Curry's PC World is another one. All these companies have had their databases of information breached at some point. So if you've ever had dealings with a big company like that, there's a chance that some of your information has been stolen. Now, that's not to say that it's been used for any criminal intent at this stage. It just means that somebody's bought, for example, maybe your address, your name, your telephone number, something along those lines. Now, it is important that if you're aware of a data breach that maybe pops up in the news, that you go in and maybe change your password. So say, for example, you have a British Airways points sort of login, just go in, change your password, and that 99% of the time will actually just save you from any sort of further kind of breaches yourself. You might also inadvertently give your data away. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, you might get an email in, as I said earlier on, you might get an email into your inbox and click on a link. And that link might actually do a number of things. It might take you to a bogus website where you might think you're going to a website like Amazon or even your energy supplier, and you log in to that website. And when you're logging into that website, because it's a fake website, what you're actually doing is giving your username, your password, or your PIN number to the fraudsters, which they will then sort of use at a later date. Or indeed, if you click on a link, sometimes what happens is you download a little piece of software onto your computer, which is called malware. And again, this is a little piece of software that sits on your computer until you do something fancy like logging into online banking, as I say, Amazon, something where you need to put in PIN and password. It then collects that information and sends it on to the fraudsters. So there's loads of different ways they can get your information in that respect. But what I would say on that is there's loads of ways to protect yourself as well. And one of the simple ways is just getting your software and sort of things like your antivirus software, which stops the antivirus going onto your computer. Or likewise, there's lots of malware software out there as well that can actually protect your computer. Now, if you are a Royal Bank of Scotland customer, if you log into our security website or even your online banking, you can actually download a piece of software for free that will protect all your devices from this type of attack as well. And finally, you might actually knowingly give away your data, which is probably the most bizarre one when you actually hear it out loud. But a lot of people will fill in surveys. So for example, on social media, they might fill in maybe a click-through survey just to say, get free vouchers or something like that. That might just be a criminal getting your information. You might be stopped in the street by someone collecting information. So say, for example, for a charity or something a bit untoward, maybe just collecting information for a survey. Again, be very careful who you're actually giving your data away to. Make sure you know who you're actually giving your data away to, because that's sometimes just a way of these criminals getting your information, just to sell it on, not necessarily to attack you, but just to sell it on and use it at a later date. So any crisis is basically seen as an opportunity for these scammers to target us. And, we've seen a lot of them over the years, certainly holiday airlines collapsing, various sort of even things like the COVID-19. Criminals are amazingly adept at actually jumping on these things, and it is very, very, very quickly. We saw within weeks of the COVID-19 sort of starting, there was already people approaching people at doors, and the scams they were coming up with were really quite convoluted, but certainly they were very quick to jump on any kind of things. And the same was with the holiday collapse, holiday airline collapses last year. Again, very quickly, people just trying to get money or details from you. So things we've seen sort of recently, claims that you might have to pay a fine because you've been spotted outside your home. There was one that we saw quite a lot of recently. It was purportedly from the police, basically saying you've been seen at your home more than twice over the last seven days. You need to pay a £60 fine. Please click here. If not, we'll send a police officer around to your door to collect the funds. Now, that was completely made up, but a lot of people were responding to that because the threat was there. They're unsure of the situation, and certainly uncertainty always breeds a real good ground for these scammers, because they just know people aren't sure of the rules. They're not really sure what what they should be doing, and they don't want a fine. At the end of the day, who wants to pay a fine? Nobody. There's also been a lot of sort of text and email scams coming out purportedly from your bank, saying that there's maybe a payment due to come off your account. Click here if you don't think it's right. Again, that link was taking people to bogus websites. So again, just be very careful when you do get texts through on your phone. Make sure that you actually, again, understand who they're from. Some fraudsters are actually dropping text into other text lines. So say, for example, the Royal Bank, they're able to sort of manipulate the heading at the top, so it looks like it's come from the Royal Bank as well, or whatever bank you actually bank with. So just be very careful. Do you actually know where you got that text from? Another big one we've been seeing recently, and certainly I got a call from my mum actually last week about this one, so I know it's still happening, but it's tax rebates. Again, they're coming out from HMRC saying you're due a tax rebate. Please click here, fill in the details, fill in your bank account details, and we'll get your refund to you. Now, we know for a fact that the HMRC will not contact you in this way. It is a scam if you do get one. So be very careful of these things that comes through. Finally, the one I wanted to talk to, just because it's we're coming up to Christmas, and a lot of us will maybe be shopping in a different way, maybe ways that we've never done in the past because we can't get out. We're maybe doing a lot of online shopping, or indeed, just doing it more often than you maybe would have done in the past, and maybe looking for sort of cheaper deals. But deals to be good to be true is something to look out for, because they usually are. There's a lot of scams out there. Certainly, we've seen it with, for example, big ticket items like PlayStation 5 for the younger ones, where they've bought up a bulk, but then they're selling them on either a profit, or indeed they don't actually have the device itself and they're just selling it on and keeping the money. So there's a lot of things like that. But it also happens, for example, in catalogues that come through the door, these catalogues that you see coming through the door. We've seen a big rise in sort of fake ones like that, where you fill in your details in the back of the catalogue, send it off. But again, it's just criminals trying to get your details. So just be very careful when you are shopping, that if a deal seems to be too good to be true, is it actually a legitimate deal? So just be careful with that one. So once they've got your data, what do they do with your data? So again, there's a couple of things they do with it. The first thing is they want to impersonate you. So for example, if they get your bank account details and maybe some other sort of information off your social media accounts, they might actually try and call us up and actually trying to be yourself and ask for the money to be transferred. Now, we've got a lot of things, and I know a lot of other banks are in the same position, where we've got a lot of safeguards in place to stop impersonation fraud, and you'll probably find your banking will change if it hasn't already over the last couple of months. We're doing a lot of two-party authentication now, where not only do you have to have the person on the phone, but that person might need to have your access to your text messages, or indeed we actually do voice recognition now as well. So we're able to identify our customers through their voices as well. So there's a lot of things we're doing to protect our customers, and as I say, a lot of banks are doing the same. So that's the first thing they'll do, is they'll just try and use your data just to go straight to the money source, or indeed to Amazon or whatever it is, and buy sort of goods using your data. So that's the first thing they do. But the more common one is actually just to contact you directly and convince you that they are the bank, that they are the police, and then ask you to move money to a safe account, for example. The big one we see in the bank is somebody getting a phone call from pretending to be from the bank, saying there's fraud happening on your account right now, and we need you to move your money to a safe account to keep you safe. One thing I will say is we will never, ever, ever ask you to move your money to a safe account. It's just not something we do. It's not something that any bank will do. If we suspect fraud on your account, we'll just put a block on your account and stop the money going anywhere. We do not need your permission to actually move the money to a safe account. So please do not do this. They'll also maybe contact you saying that they're the police, and that your card has actually, your debit card has actually been used in a fraud, and they actually need it as evidence. So they'll send a police officer around to your house to collect your card and your PIN number, and that they can then use that in the case. Again, this is not something that the police do. It's not something that the bank get involved in. So if somebody asks for your PIN number, keep it safe. Do not give it to anybody. That one's called courier fraud. The police is one aspect of it. They do various different sort of versions of that one. But just be careful if somebody's on the phone and they're actually asking you for that detail. Actually, just on that point, is just actually make sure you know who is actually on the phone if somebody does phone you. Even if it is the bank, we will never be offended if you just hang up on us and phone back from a different phone, just to make sure it is the bank that's on the phone. It's always a good way to do that. It's another wee tip I just wanted to sort of share with you there. So where does the money go to once these criminals have actually got the money? How do they actually move it, and where do they actually where does the money go to? So money is usually paid out of a victim's account, and it usually goes into a Mule account. Now, a Mule account is basically a legitimate account that the criminals have access to. For example, what they might do is they might pay a student for access to his account. So they may, for example, say, right, okay, you need some money at the weekend. If you let us borrow your account, you'll get access to it again at the weekend, and we'll leave some money in there for you. So all they do is they just bounce transactions through these accounts through the week, and then the student gets some money at the end of it. That's one way. So we've got to look after our students, make sure that they know that if they actually do this, it is a criminal offence, and they are part of the overall investigation and could be dealt with quite severely on that. The other way is there's been a lot, because there's been a lot of unemployment, there's a lot of get rich quick schemes that you might see out there. And again, it often involves things like fake job adverts where somebody thinks they're doing a job, they're maybe just transferring money for a company, but actually what they're doing is bouncing fake money through accounts. And again, be very careful. If there's somebody you know is going for a new job, again, do they know that company is legitimate, and that it is actually a real job. The sad thing is, once the money's gone, it's usually gone because they bounce it from you, for example, your account into a couple of these Mule accounts, and then they usually bounce overseas. So we have to actually kind of chase that and act on it as quickly as they can. So again, if you feel you are being targeted by some form of fraud, let your bank know, let the police know very, very quickly, because it allows us to chase that and get that money. We actually do have a banking promise where that if your money has been taken from your account because it's been hacked, that we will give your money back straight away. But again, it's important to keep your details as safe, as secure as you can. It's actually quite hard to hear, but a lot of the money that is taken from in this kind of sort of fashion, so via different frauds, a lot of it goes towards more criminal activities, and that could be things like buying drugs, and more recently we've seen a lot more sort of people trafficking. Again, all these different types of things go on in that kind of sort of criminal underworld. So again, keeping your information safe, keeping your details safe. Again, it just stops from these more sort of bad things happening. So how do we go about kind of protecting ourselves? So I'm going to give you some sort of details here. Hopefully this will kind of help sort of protect you from sort of fraud and scams going forward. First one is just actually making your passwords unique. Seems a strange one, but a lot of people use the same password for everything that they actually have. So that whether that's social media accounts, whether that's their online banking, whether that's just Amazon, because naturally it's easier just to remember one password. But if you have the same password for this everything, once a criminal gets access to one device, they can actually access everything, and that's where the sort of bigger fraud kind of happens. So using different passwords helps protect yourself, and I'll give you an example of that later on as well. Keeping your personal information safe, it is yours, so do not give your personal information to anybody else. Again, this sounds simple, but it's one of the biggest things we're seeing as well, especially through these times where people are not able to get out of their houses. They're giving their cards, their bank cards to maybe a friend or a relative, and then giving their PIN number away to them as well to get money out of a machine. Now, where that starts is you might find we've had instances where people have taken more money out than they should do, or they've given it to a care worker who then again uses it to their own advantage. So again, just keep your information safe, keep it to yourself. Do not give your online banking details to anybody else. As I said before, if someone calls you unexpectedly, always make sure you know who they are that's on the phone. If you can, hang up and call back from a trusted number, or call back from a different device, because if someone's called you out the blue, sometimes you're not ready for that call. You can be sometimes taken aback by it and suddenly get caught up in it. Take a step back. Take five is actually the big police campaign at the moment. Take 5 seconds just to think, who's on the phone, what are they actually wanting from me, and if you're in any doubt at all, hang up. And breaking that line just actually breaks that line from the criminal, so you're less likely to be conned going forward. A lot of us are going onto social media more and more these days, but think about what you're actually putting on social media. So one of the big examples I used to give pre-COVID was when people used to go on holiday, the first thing they did was when they reached the airport, they would put a big post up saying we're sitting in Witherspoons having a pint before we fly off to wherever it's Tenerife for their 2-week holiday. Now, what that says is, that's great, I'm now at my house, you can pop round and rob me anytime you want over the next 2 weeks, it's all fine, don't worry about it. So actually be careful what you're actually putting on there. You know, the fact that you're checking into a restaurant or something like that, or you're around visiting family, again, it just shows you're not in your house, so just be careful of that. Likewise, if you're posting things like pictures, what is in the background of that picture? What does that say about you? Is it showing that you've got lots of expensive stuff in the background? You know, just be careful with that. And again, keep your profiles private. If you don't want to make it public, make it private, because it'll stop who actually sees that. Another great one is just keep your devices up to speed. So, but what do I mean by that is antivirus software, if you've got it on there, make sure you have some form of software on there to protect your devices. But as a minimum, when your phone or your tablet or whatever device you use to connect to the internet needs an update, make sure you do that update, because it's not always like an added extra that they're adding on to the device. So they're not maybe adding extra apps or whatever. It's just literally sometimes security patches. So these big companies see the fact that somebody's tried to make an attempt on their security, so they'll send a wee patch, and it comes as a form of a security update. So make sure your devices are as up to date as you can make them. Also, just knowing the signs I've talked about today of the frauds that are happening, different things to look out for. Talk to your friends and family. So if you, for example, get an email coming into your inbox that you know is a fraudulent email, absolutely delete it. No harm in doing that. But also tell a friend or a family member to say, look, this is what happened to me today. I got this email through. I got this call from someone pretending to be from something. Now, yes, it's a wee talking point, but also it means that when they get that email, when they get that call, they'll protect themselves. So again, we're protecting ourselves as a community just by talking about fraud, and it makes it harder for these criminals to really kind of sort of take grip. So I said I'd give you a wee help with some passwords. So one thing we promote as a bank is using the 3-word technique. So what do I mean by that is just to pick, when you're creating a password, so say you're logging into your Amazon and it asks you to create a new password. Well, have a look around you, or know 3 words that you're going to know going forward. So if I look around my desk, I maybe have a phone, a book, and a pen. So my new password could be phone, book, pen. So that's going to be quite hard to guess because not necessarily you will not know what's in front of me on my desk. And then change out some of the characters of that. So for example, change the A to an @ sign, change any L's to a 1 sign, something along those lines. Just makes it harder and harder for these criminals to actually guess what your password is. And then the final step is actually wrap that whole password with the first and last letters of the website that you're actually on. So say, for example, it's Amazon, you put an A at the start and an N at the end. So yeah, you know when it's on Amazon, that's what you're going to do. And then your 3 words with all your mixed up signals. Now, that makes a very, very secure password that nobody's going to guess, but it also makes it unique to yourself. So again, it'll be easier to remember, because the worst thing about making new and unique passwords is trying to remember them all. But yeah, that's one of the sort of techniques that we use. So where do you go for more help? Well, certainly our own website is brimming with information. We have a security center on there that you can download. As I said before, there's different pieces of software you can download on there. There's loads of hints and tips. We also have our own Facebook page where we do a lot of seminars on keeping yourself safe from fraud and scams, so you can listen back, watch these different types of things. So there's loads of information on there. You can actually go to sort of various different sort of government organisations. There's a list on there on the screen. But also Citizens Advice is always a great place to start as well, because they have some great information and we work quite closely with them as well. So I've come to the end of what I was going to talk about today, but it'll be good to hear now some sort of, if you have any maybe experiences with fraud and scams, or indeed if you have any questions about everything. So I'll just stop the screen so you can actually see me, but hopefully there we go. Perfect. So hopefully we're back up and running. So has there been any questions come through?
Not at all. Just say, just very, very quickly, David, thank you so much for that. That's been really, really interesting. And I've learned a few things, which I'll come to in a second. I'm just checking. I don't think there's actually been any questions as yet, but I'll give people an opportunity to put them through on the chat box while we're talking, if that's okay, because a few things have come to me. I loved, in fact, I've made a note here about your suggestions about the passwords. I think that's absolutely brilliant. I've not heard that one about putting a letter at the beginning and the end. I think that's a really, that's a brilliant tip, because I think, you know, we all complain about, I can never remember what password I used, and why do we have to keep constantly changing it? And also there's a temptation for people to always use the same password all the time, isn't there? So,
yeah.
Okay. There is one question you might see there, David, from Zoe. Can you show the slide with the, oh, it's disappeared off my screen just as we did that. Can you show the slide where we go for more information and support again? I think that was your last.
Yeah, I'll just go and pop that up. Give me 2 seconds.
Another question's pop through. How do you know you're actually speaking to the bank? Is it the phone number on your bank card?
Yeah, so actually, yes, you can. Well, there's two things. One, if you physically call the number from your bank card, then yes, the number on the back, I think it's 03457 24 24 24. That is our actual number. So if you are calling the bank, that is the absolutely correct number to call. However, if somebody is phoning you from the bank, what I would suggest is you speak to that person and then phone back in. The reason being is that a lot of the scammers, they actually mask the number that's comes up on your caller ID. So again, it will just look like the bank that's potentially calling. It'll come up as 03457 24 24 24, and you will just automatically think that's the bank. So don't be scared to actually question the person on the phone. First off, what are they actually wanting? Are they needing information? Because, you know, chances are we're not going to phone you to, you know, ask you to do anything. There is banks do calls to get people in for financial health checks and various things, but we won't be asking you for physical information at that point. You know, we'll never just phone you up and ask you for something. If there is fraud in the account, then yes, phone back, call back in on our fraud number, or phone the number on the back of your card. They will transfer you through. It always just makes sure you're through to that right person. You can ask the questions about your account as well. You know, you can just say, you know, that's fine, I will give you information, but please confirm this on my account, or whatever it is. Just question back that person. And if you're under any doubt at all, just hang up the phone, because let's be honest, there's nothing urgent in finance. Well, there can be, but generally speaking, there's nothing that urgent in finance that won't actually, you know, allow that time to actually physically call back. Because as I said before, if we suspect there is fraud in your account, all we'll do is put a block on it, so nothing else will happen. So, you know, we won't be phoning you up to say, go and please do this quickly. It's that sense of urgency that actually puts a panic in people. And again, that's what to be careful of. We'll never phone you up to panic you. Well, I wouldn't like to think so anyway. That's not what we're here for. Yeah.
And I think you said how your colleagues are probably, you and your colleagues are expecting that kind of level of sort of suspicion from people. So if people are saying, oh, I'm not too sure who I'm speaking to, I'm going to hang up, I'm sure there won't be any offence at all taken. There'll be much more.
We've actually been making a lot of what we term as care calls over the last sort of 12 months, certainly with COVID-19, and we've just literally been phoning people up to check they're okay. Now, any of these calls that we do, yes, we get a lot of suspicion saying, yes, is it actually the bank? Well, actually, we're not asking for any information, and we're not actually telling you information either. It's just really, are you okay? Is there anything we can do? If there is, then we point them in the right direction. We'll never actually go into that full, you know, getting account information, what's your date of birth. We won't go into that information or that level of depth from these calls. It's just a generalized call that we'll actually make on that.
Okay, great stuff. There is one more question, but I'm aware that you're trying to put your slide up and I keep bombarding you with more questions.
That's okay. I'll do it at the end. That's what I'll do. I'll pop it up at the end. That's
okay, no problem. Okay, another question is, if someone does fall victim to a scam, what would be the best 3 things you would advise them as a friend or a family member? That's very relevant to our organisation as well, but that's a really good question.
Yep. To be fair, to tailor it down to 3 is probably quite tricky, but the first thing is report it. Without a doubt, is make sure that you do actually report it, because that, as I said in the slide, 95% of the time people just don't do it. They just fall victim and they feel embarrassed by it. You know, so first off, report it now, report it to your bank and the police. At least then it's logged. The police, depending on the actual crime, it depends on how far they'll actually physically take it at that stage. But again, if it's logged, it means it can be tracked back, and if it's a bigger problem, it's a bigger issue, it can all kind of be linked back in. So report that to start with, and then get in touch with your bank. And again, that allows us to look at this your whole kind of banking globally. So you might have just bought something on Amazon and found out that was a fraudulent, maybe on eBay, for example, and maybe found out that was a fraudulent transaction. Well, actually, it allows us to then monitor your accounts to make sure that they're not using your details to purchase more things. So again, let your bank know, and again, let everybody around you know of the actual type of scam that you've actually fallen victim to, because you usually find as well that these things don't just happen in isolation. A couple of things: if you get scammed once, you will probably find that you will have more and more approaches quite regularly, because what happens is, one scammer thinks, well, okay, I've been successful, I will then sell that information to someone else. They then make an attempt, then they sell the information on, and you get a bit of a snowball effect. You get a lot of these kind of attempts very quickly. But likewise, if they've got your information from social media, for example, or your Facebook page, they might look at your actual friend list and actually start approaching your friends or family members, because what they'll do is they'll actually use another person as a way to build up kind of a rapport. So say, for example, oh, your cousin actually referred me on to you, or build up or I met you back at school, because they're just looking at your school profile. I was at such and such a school, I was in the year above you. They just build that sort of familiarity up with you, so that they can then sort of break down the barriers and make you susceptible. So again, by telling your friends and family, it allows them to kind of be wary that these things have been happening. And even, for example, I actually had one through my emails this morning. Somebody's email was hacked, and therefore the hacker's basically sending out lots of emails pretending to be this person, so that you give information away. So again, just talking about these things is probably the biggest thing to do.
And I'd agree, and our organisation would echo that very much about it's tricky. I mean, obviously we work with older people, but it's very, very tricky for older people to do that, to confess to some of those sort of situations and things that they've been going on. And as you said, David, you and I were talking about, and forgive me for going through the story again, but it was such an important story for me about a gentleman who had been, who thought he was a recent widow, and he'd contacted by what he thought was a lady in, I think it's in Nigeria, and he thought he was actually building up a relationship. In fact, he even wanted to marry her for his second time. He was very keen to make contact. He was going to meet her at an airport. Even while he was at the airport, they were continuing to kind of contact him, and she was about to come into the country, and he was told, oh no, I can't come in, I need a bit more money just to kind of make sure I can clear customs. And right up to that point, he was still being scammed. It was absolutely quite shocking. And what was also interesting was that, and I think you did touch on it, how a lot of these scams are not just one form of scam, because he then started to get involved in, because he was quite keen to still maintain this relationship. They're asking him to do money laundering. There was all these sort of weird and very convoluted ways of how he's going to move money around, and it's just basically money laundering for them as well. It was just getting worse and worse. And then the worst part for me was that when the family became aware of it, they tried to do something about it, as a caring sort of family would well do, and they took away his laptop with his permission, admittedly, but they then made contact with him again and actually supplied him with the scammer supplied him with yet another laptop, so he could then carry on being scammed, carry on doing this money laundering. And this is turning into such a complicated and convoluted sort of thing to unpick what was going on. And luckily he became aware, I guess, that things were not as he thought they were. So yeah, it was horrendous.
I see that there's actually a few. I've managed to get the question up, so that's quite a couple.
Yeah.
Couple of questions there. One I've got here is, heard there's a phone line to deal with vulnerable customers, which speeds things up. Is that correct? Yes. Well, certainly at the Royal Bank we have our own vulnerable customer line. I actually form part of that team. I don't deal with the incoming calls, but I deal with the more complex cases. So it is actually a separate number to the 0345 number. I'll I'll remember the number off before I go, but it allows, it's meant for people over the age of 60 or indeed that are sheltering in their house. So there's different things we can actually do. It's a bit more of a different topic than the sort of scam side of things. We don't deal with the fraud side there, but again, it's about trying to make banking easier for people certainly that can't get out of the houses. I just while I remember, it's if you've got a pen handy, whoever it was that asked the question, it's 0800 and then it's 051 4177. So that's 0800 051 4177. And basically that will get you straight through to our call center. It doesn't actually go through the IVR system where you press button 1 to do this, you press button 2 to do that, put in your customer number, PIN and password. You actually get straight through to a human being on that number. So again, it's a great number to have just in your armory. If you ever feel that you're trapped in your house, you can't get out, phone that number and somewhere down the line we'll be able to help you out. So that's a great question there.
Okay.
Thanks very much.
Another one, I've had, in fact, this applies to other sort of organisations. I've had emails recently claiming to be from TV licensing, stating that my direct payments haven't gone through. I know this is a scam, but should be reporting it, and if so, who? I think all the ones, the DVLL, they as well, don't they?
Yep. So again, any types of these sort of emails that come through, we actually have a reporting button on our own website. So we have an email address, which is phishing@rbs.co.uk. And that's our PH phishing. And basically, when you send that, if it's an email that comes into you, you just send it on. Again, it just allows us to actually be aware of these types of information coming through. For yourself, I would just delete it, because if you know it's a scam, just delete it. Actually opening out of the email won't do you any harm. It's usually when you click a link, that's when the harm becomes. So physically getting that email in your inbox, don't be worried about it, just delete it or forward it on to your bank if you want to make them aware of it. Again, it just allows us as organizations to kind of get a feel for the types of things that are going out there. Or indeed, if you get an email purporting to be from the Royal Bank and you're a bit suspicious of it, again, send it on to the same email address and we'll let you know whether that's a genuine email or not. So yeah, you can do that one.
Great. And I know we've got another question, but that while you were talking about that, it was one of my questions actually, was how you sometimes come across emails with a previous password in the heading side of things, isn't it? So it's a very old thing, and that can be very kind of disconcerting as well, can't it? It's an old password that you've used.
Yeah, so again, just be careful when you do get an email in, because the fraudsters are amazingly adept at actually making it look genuine. But one of the sort of easy tips to kind of just check the email is actually genuine is just to hover over the name at the top. So where it says from, just hover over the name and it usually brings up the full email address of where it's from. And that's the same with a website on any browser as well. If you hover over it, it gives you the full address. So it might say, instead of RBS, it might just say hotmail.com. You know, instead of rbs.co.uk, it might be from a Hotmail. Now, we will never use a Hotmail or Google Mail or anything like that. It will be from rbs.com, but it allows you to see where that email address has originated from. And then likewise, if you're on a website, if you look at the actual web bar address, you know, make sure it's amazon.co.uk, for example, or amazon.com, and not something / Amazon / something, pretending again to be, you know, Amazon. It just may look like a genuine website. So make sure, don't always trust Google when you actually just type in, you know, Amazon and click on the first one. It's not necessarily always the correct website. So just check those email address, check the web addresses when you click through as well. Just another way of kind of keeping yourself safe.
Great, thank you very much. A lot of times when you purchase things online, you have to go bank, you have to give bank details and the 3-digit code. Is that safe to do so?
Yeah, I mean, it's actually something we're working on. Again, a bit of, well, some of you may have already experienced this, but it's just a way of checking you have both the front part of the card and the back part of the card. We've actually developed even further down the line now. So effectively at the moment, yeah, you put in the PAN number, and that's the big long 16-digit number, and then put in the 3 digits in the back as well as the sort of. Now that was originally to kind of stop things like when you went into maybe a garage or some form of shop, and they would just take a copy of the front of the card. So then they got that part. It actually means you have to have both sides of the card, so it makes it a little bit harder to actually know that that's a genuine card. But we're now moving on to, and a lot of banks are doing the same, is what's called 2-point authentication. So you will not only need to do that first part, but we may also send you a text to verify as well. So I'll give you another code via text. Or we've gone one step further. If you are on our mobile banking app, well, there's actually a section within our mobile app where you can authorize transactions. So say, for example, you're on maybe a website you've never used before, or it's Amazon, it's a bigger purchase than you maybe would normally make. You might get a wee notification on your phone just saying, are you wanting to authorize this transaction? And you just click yes, go back to the website, and then it would go on with the transaction. But again, it's just to make sure that you're not a fraudster sitting there with somebody's bank details just trying to make lots of purchases. It's about authenticating that person is there as well. So yeah, there's a lot of developments in that, and you'll probably find there'll be a lot more sort of happening over the sort of coming months as well.
But I personally find that very reassuring, because sometimes when you are purchasing something online, there's a bit of the back of your mind thinking, is this genuine? So when it says it's going to send you a text, I'm actually, oh, thank goodness, that is a genuine text.
Yeah.
I'm actually quite relieved about it. So I'm very much in favour of that, and I hope a lot of people are as well. So
yep.
I don't think we've got any more questions coming up, but I was just going to ask you, another fact linked to that really is your view on like using mobile phones for banking sort of transactions. I mean, what's the sort of general consensus on those these days?
Absolutely. I mean, certainly a couple of precursors I'll say, but I would say it's, personally, I find it the easiest way of doing my banking. And I know the type of clientele I deal with, once you actually get comfortable with it, then you will probably not go back to any other way of doing your banking. I would say a couple of caveats: don't use sort of public Wi-Fi. So if you're on a bus or if you're in a library, something along those lines where you think other people might be logging into that Wi-Fi, don't use that for accessing. I mean, and that's not just your banking account information, but maybe your Amazon or whatever, because you don't know who else is logged into that server and gleaning information. So just be careful when you're actually doing any kind of secure transaction. But banking itself, if you're in doubt, what to do is take your Wi-Fi off your phone and just use the mobile signal, because then you know it's a secure link from your phone directly to the bank. And that would be sort of the securest way of doing it. Talk to your bank about that if you think you've got any problems at all, because again, as I said in the presentation, we actually have a banking promise that if there was ever any hacks done like that, we would give you 100% of your money back straight away, because it's not something that happens often at all, because it's actually easier to con a person than it is to hack a banking system. It's easier just to ask somebody from their PIN number and password. It's amazingly easy to ask someone for your PIN and your password than it is to actually physically hack a banking system. So that's where most of the breaches happen, is when you're actually giving your data away. But if you've not done it before and you're not using mobile banking, or you're scared of it, just dip your toe in the water. Just literally get it set up, go into your bank or get somebody to help you set up, and then just literally do the simple things that literally just look at your transactions and then log off. And that's all you'll do for a while. And when you become more comfortable with it, you'll do more and more things. Don't go on there thinking this is going to solve all my problems and I'm just going to just do everything, because there's so much on there that you'll just confuse yourself and you'll just walk away and you're just like, this is too complicated, I'm going to walk away. Just do the simple things to start with, and then you'll build up that confidence and you'll be away. You'll be running in no time at all. And it's amazing the types of people that I have using our app. Our app is certified by the Royal Society of the Blind, so that again, there's loads of different ways you can actually do it. So if you've got a disability or something that precludes you from doing it, talk to us, because there's generally going to be a way around it. The app will talk to you, it'll tell you what's on the screen. You can make the fonts bigger if you find that actually the sort of size of it is wrong. So again, talk to us about that, and we'll make your life a lot easier just by using it. Yep.
Thank you very much. I don't think we've got any more questions from the people watching us. I wonder whether you'd be able to, and it may not be something that you have a lot of dealings with, about something we're coming across more as an organisation. It's still people talking about the banking protocol, where, for example, if someone's an older person perhaps is being taken to a bank and being asked or coerced into taking out money, I know there are some sort of checks and balances in place to try and stop that.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly something I can't go into full details clearly for project purposes of what we actually do. But yeah, be reassured that, see, we have had instances where it's tailed off slightly, and because of COVID, it doesn't happen quite as much. We used to get people driven to physical banks to withdraw money. Now, if you're ever in the situation where a builder or a bogus builder or something like that takes you to the bank to take money out, and you feel in any way kind of threatened, let the teller know, And we have, as you rightly said, Brian, we will get the police as quickly. We have protocols in place that we will be able to stop these things very, very quickly. We won't make a big song and dance about it, so it's not going to be a big thing. It will literally just happen around you, but we will protect you, and that is something we will do for our customers. Is you also might find that we might ask you strange questions when you're doing a transaction. We're not trying to be overly personal. We are literally trying to sort of get the details that we sometimes know that people are maybe being defrauded before they do. So again, it's about getting that information out, making sure that our customers are safe. So yeah, we won't make excuses for asking you that extra question. It's not trying to be overly personal. It's just literally to make sure that we're keeping our customers safe and secure. So yeah, it's the things we'll do around that.
That's certainly been our experience, my experience as well, that it is happening. It's generally that is doing a lot of good. We are, hearing about cases where that suspicions have been raised, and that's working really, really well. So it's definitely a good thing to use. So. Someone's made a comment, which is a fair comment. A lot of older people do not like using mobile banking or have very good mobile phones. Is going back to that side of your
Yep. So again, we've done a lot of work on this, certainly over the last 12 months, and that's where this vulnerable line is certainly coming in into its own, because we do appreciate that not everybody is sort of digital or wants to go or can go down that kind of route. So it's important to be able to bank how you want to bank. Now, does that mean there's going to be a branch in every single town? Unfortunately not. From a business point of view, that just will never, it just wouldn't be feasible. However, we do as an organization really work well with different organizations to make sure, up till when COVID started, I used to run a clinic up in Kinross and various different places. So it's not just about having the banks there, it's about what do actually people need, and then how can we actually get that over. So it might be just a normal telephone call to someone and being able to actually sort of take them through their banking over the phone. Or it might just be actually going into a branch, or we have our mobile banking fleet as well when they're allowed to be on the roads as well. We do have different ways of doing banking. So again, if you're ever any doubt, phone that vulnerable line that I gave you earlier on, because we can sort of put things in place. One of the great things we've done, there's two great things we've done over the last, that again have been developed because of COVID, is we actually do cash deliveries for people that physically cannot get out the house. We can do a cash delivery for that as well. So that stops you having to physically come into a bank. We also have a companion card as well, where you can actually set up a card for a friend or relative on your account. It doesn't give them access to everything, but you just basically top up that card. So say, for example, with £100, so it allows them to physically go out and do their shopping, do your shopping for you. So there's lots of things we're actually developing just to alleviate that, because saying going into the branch isn't always the best thing as well, because we have a lot of people traveling into a branch and they don't need to travel into a branch, and you could be standing in a queue, you could be, the weather could be horrendous, you could be putting yourself in danger just physically traveling to a branch. But so call us up and we'll see how we can actually help you, and then if we can't, we'll do something around it. So yeah,
I think that's a great, especially what you're talking about, the cash sort of situation, because a lot of older people do prefer to use it, and it's quite understandable. It's a pride thing as well. They're very happy to have neighbours, because people have very good neighbours and they want to do shopping for them, but they don't want to feel kind of beholden to them, and they want to feel, thank you for doing my shopping, but I don't want you doing that all the time unless I can, not reward you, but use my money. So if we do that sort of thing, it's got to be a good idea, isn't it?
Yeah. So yeah, as I say, if you find that's going to be something that's of use to you, please just phone us up and we'll talk you through the process. But yeah, absolutely.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you. I think I'm just looking down here on my list because the questions were coming out and you've answered them sort of very well. I don't think there's anything else that I've got particularly to ask, and so I don't know whether anyone else has got any other questions just on the chat side. I don't know, David, you have to put your slide back up if that's okay.
Yeah, my apologies, because it will not look very pretty, but give me a second, I'll get that back up there. There we go. There we go. Hopefully we can see that.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. So,
there we go.
Okay. So unless anyone's got any other questions or anything other you want to add, David, I mean, we'll be doing several more of these sort of events and webinars. So if anyone's got any particular topics that they want to relating to fraud and scams, that's absolutely fine. I'm sure we can adapt any future presentations to anything specific that people come up. I'm looking forward to, like most people, the days when we can do more of these face-to-face things. And you were talking about, and in fact, you and I met in Kinross that one time when I came on to one of your clinics. I'm sure you were looking forward to the days when those sort of things.
Yeah, when we get back out on the road, absolutely, 100%, 100%.
that'd be really good. So I'm looking forward to that time as well. So Dave, that's been absolutely brilliant. So thank you so much for your time today. It's been really, really helpful. I've learned, I've got loads of notes here that's been really useful, and it's certainly got my mind thinking about a few things. So if anyone's got any other comments or questions, please feel free to put them up now, or drop me an email. Hopefully you've got my email address at the beginning. That's it for this morning, I think. So unless any last minute questions anyone wants to put up, just to kind of keep in touch with what's going on. You and I, David, I'm sure we'll be in touch and do more of these things as in the future. And thank you all very much for your time, and I look forward to seeing people again soon.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Cheers. Thanks. Bye.
Just now. Thank you.